My name is Martha. I am 65 years old. In my house, a whisper was more dangerous than a scream, and a smile was more painful than a frown. This is how I almost lost my son to the woman who called me mother. I am sitting alone in my small, dark room. The only sound is my own heavy breathing. I look at my hands resting on my lap. They are shaking again, like old, dry leaves in the wind. I try to hold a small silver thimble tightly. It is cold and hard against my trembling skin. I felt a heavy weight on my heart as I looked toward the closed door. I thought I was being a good mother by staying quiet. I knew Lydia was watching me with her sharp, cold eyes. She was waiting for me to fall. Thomas, my only son, stood between us. He had to choose between his mother's life and his wife's velvet trap. I whispered to myself, "Please, let him see the truth before it is too late." Many years ago, I was a seamstress. I worked in a small, crowded room with an old sewing machine. Every night, the machine made a loud, click-clack sound. My back often felt stiff, and my eyes were very tired under the dim light, but I never stopped working. I made dresses for rich people so my son, Thomas, could have a good education. I worked until my fingers were sore. I felt a deep sense of pride every time I saw him in his clean school uniform. I thought my sacrifice would lead to a happy future. Slowly, my body became weak. My hands started to tremble like dry leaves. I could no longer hold a small needle or guide the fabric. The doctor told me I had Parkinson's disease. It felt like a heavy shadow was falling over my life. My son was very worried. He often sat by my side and touched my shaking hands. He promised he would always protect me. When Thomas met Lydia, I felt very happy for him. She was young and had a beautiful face. She spoke with a soft voice that sounded like music. At first, she was very kind to me. She helped me walk and brought me warm tea. I thought I had found a daughter to love. Thomas looked at her with bright eyes, and I felt a sense of peace in my soul. Lydia called me mother with a sweet smile. She cleaned my room and listened to my stories. I whispered to myself, "My son has found a wonderful woman." But as my illness became worse and I needed more help, her kindness began to disappear. Her soft voice became cold. I thought we were a perfect family, but little did I know that her smile was just a velvet trap. One evening, my hand shook more than usual. The bowl of warm soup fell to the floor. Red liquid splashed on the white tiles. I felt a sharp pain in my chest, not from my illness, but from my shame. Lydia did not scream. She did not say a word. She stood still and took a deep breath, looking at the mess. She cleaned the floor slowly and then walked into the kitchen. Soon, I heard her sobbing loudly. Thomas came home and found her crying. "Lydia, what is wrong?" he asked. I whispered to myself, "Please, do not believe her." Lydia wiped her eyes with a white handkerchief. "I am fine, Thomas," she said with a tired voice. "I am just exhausted. I worry about your mother. She is losing control of her body. I am afraid she will hurt herself in this house. Everything I do for her is wrong." A few days later, Lydia brought a food tray to my small, dark room. She looked at me with a cold stare. "Thomas thinks you need more dignity," she said. "It is better if you eat here in your room. This way, we do not have to watch you struggle with your food during dinner." I felt like a piece of trash in my own home. Every time I coughed, she closed her eyes as if I were polluting her air. That's when I realized my son was becoming a stranger in his own house. One night, the walls felt very thin. I heard Lydia talking to Thomas. Her voice was soft, but it felt sharp like a needle. She held his hands and looked into his eyes with fake tears. "I have tried my best for us," she whispered. But look at you. You are getting thin from working and paying for her medicine. If this continues, our family will break." She sighed deeply. "Maybe a place with professional care is better for her. You must choose. Thomas, do you want our future, or do you want to stay in this pain?" Thomas stayed silent for a long time. I laid on my bed and stared at the ceiling. My hands were shaking uncontrollably. I felt like a heavy burden. I stayed silent because I saw my son was very tired. He loved his wife. I thought I was helping him by saying nothing, but I was only feeding the snake. I whispered to myself, "If my son is happy, I will go." The thought was heart-wrenching, but my love for him was unconditional. The day of the journey arrived. Thomas packed my small bag with trembling hands. He did not look at me once. I felt a heavy cloud of sadness in the room. "Lydia says we must save for our future, Mother. This place has professional care," he whispered. I thought I was helping my son by leaving. The nursing home was a gray, lonely place, far from the city. I sat on a hard, cold bed and watched Thomas walk away. It was a heart-wrenching moment. I whispered to myself, "Be happy, my son. I will be fine." Thomas reached home an hour later. He realized he forgot my warm sweater in the back seat of the car. He opened the front door very quietly. He expected to hear Lydia crying in the kitchen, but instead, he heard a loud, joyful laugh. Her voice was not tired or soft anymore. It was sharp and cruel. She was talking to a friend on the phone. "Finally, that smelly old woman is gone." Lydia laughed loudly. Thomas stopped in the hallway. His face went pale. I knew he was listening, but Lydia did not see him. "You don't know how hard it was to play the sad wife and perfect daughter-in-law. I am so exhausted from acting every day. Now, her medicine money will pay for my spa and a luxury vacation. Thomas? Oh, he is so easy to trick. He loves me too much. I just cry a few tears, and he does exactly what I want." Thomas felt his blood run cold. His heart hammered against his ribs like a trapped bird. He leaned against the wall, breathing heavily. He stayed silent for a long moment, letting her toxic words sink into his soul. Little did I know that at that very moment, my son's eyes were finally opening to her manipulation. He stood in the shadows, and the house felt colder than the nursing home. Thomas did not wait another second. He ran to his car and drove back to the gray nursing home as fast as he could. Inside the cold room, I was sitting on the edge of the hard bed. I was trembling. I was still holding my old dusty bag tightly. I felt so alone in that dark place. I thought about my life and my son. I wondered if he would ever come back. Suddenly, the door flew open. It was Thomas. His face was red, and he was breathing heavily. He looked at me, and his eyes were full of deep pain. He ran to me and fell to his knees. He grabbed my shaking hands and pressed them against his face. Hot tears ran down his cheeks. "Mother, I am so sorry," he sobbed. "I was so blind. I was so stupid." I took a deep sigh. I knew he had finally heard the truth. I felt a mix of sadness and relief. I thought I could keep my secret forever to protect him, but the truth always finds a way. I whispered to myself, "It is okay, my child. Everything is okay now." With my trembling fingers, I opened my old bag. I took out a small, blue bank book and a folded letter. I placed them in his hands. "Read it, Thomas," I said softly. He opened the letter with wide eyes. I had written, "My dear son, I know Lydia is exhausted from cleaning after a smelly old woman like me. I had a lot of money saved from my years of sewing. I wanted to go to a better home, but Lydia told you we were in debt. She told you we had no money. I knew she was lying. I knew she hated me. I saw it in her eyes every time I made a mess or coughed. I came to this place so you wouldn't have to worry about the cost. I wanted you to take my savings and give them to her. I wanted you to save your marriage. I am old, Thomas. My life is almost over. I only want you to be happy." Thomas stared at the letter. He looked at the bank book. It was all my life savings, a very large amount. He realized that I saw through Lydia's manipulation from the beginning. He knew I chose to suffer in this cold place just so he wouldn't lose his wife. "You knew?" he asked with a broken voice. "You knew she hated you, and you still went?" I touched his hair gently. "A mother always knows, Thomas," I said, "and a mother's love is unconditional." He covered his face and cried loudly. The room was silent for a moment as we both let the pain out. I felt his heart breaking, and it was heart-wrenching. Little did I know that his tears were the start of a new life. He stood up, picked up my bag, and said firmly, "We are going home, Mother. Right now." Thomas drove me back to our house. Hardly had he entered the hallway when the drama began. Lydia was in the living room, a glass of champagne in her hand. When she saw us, her eyes went wide. She quickly put the glass down and ran to me with a fake smile. "Oh, Mother, why are you home so early?" she cried. She tried to hug me, but I felt her body was stiff and cold. "Thomas, you made me so worried. I was just sitting here praying for her safety." Thomas did not move. He stood still, staring at her with eyes like ice. He took a deep sigh, and for a moment, the room was completely silent. I felt the heavy tension in the air. Without saying a word, he took out his phone and played the recording of her joyful phone call. The sound of Lydia's cruel laughter filled the room. Her face went white. The velvet trap was finally broken. She fell to her knees and grabbed Thomas's legs. Tears ran down her face, but I knew they were not real. "Thomas, you understand wrong," she sobbed. "I said those things because I was under so much pressure. I was just talking to a friend to feel better. You know I love your mother. I have cleaned after her for 3 years. Are you going to throw away the wife who sacrificed her whole youth for you?" I felt a sharp pain in my heart. I thought about how many times she had made me feel like a burden. I knew she was still trying to manipulate him. I whispered to myself, "Please, Thomas, be strong." That's when I realized my son had truly changed. He coldly pushed her hands away from his legs. His voice was firm and calm. "Your sacrifice was just a theater play," he said. "But my mother's sacrifice is made of blood and bone. You did not clean for her. You were only cleaning the path to take this house. You did not love me. You only loved the medicine money. Leave now, Lydia. Leave before I call the police." Lydia looked at him, and her face changed. It was full of anger and greed. She stood up, grabbed her bag, and walked out of the door. The house was finally quiet. I took a deep breath, and I knew we were safe. My life changed once more. The house felt peaceful and quiet. Thomas did not look for professional care or a hired nurse. He decided to do everything himself. Every morning, he woke up with a gentle smile. I felt a sense of calm I had not felt for many years. I thought my son was finally free from the velvet trap. One afternoon, my hand shook, and I accidentally knocked over a glass of water. The floor became wet. I looked at the mess, and I felt a sudden fear. I remembered Lydia's angry sighs and her cold eyes. My heart began to beat fast, but Thomas just laughed softly. He took a deep breath and grabbed a clean towel. He wiped the floor carefully and looked at me. "It's just water, Mother," he said. "Don't worry, I am here." That's when I realized that a few spills on the floor were nothing. They were small compared to the toxic mess in Lydia's soul. I felt a heavy weight lift off my shoulders. I knew my son loved me for who I am, not for what I could do. Thomas began to take care of me with great patience. He washed my gray hair with warm water. He sat on a small stool and cut my fingernails very slowly. He was very gentle. I looked at him and saw a bright light in his eyes. It was a light I hadn't seen in a very long time. I thought, my boy is truly happy now. Our life is not fancy or luxury. We do not go on expensive vacations, but our home is clean in a different way. It is clean in its heart. Every evening, he sits by my side, and we talk. For the first time in years, he feels the true power of family love. I whisper to myself, this is what a real home feels like. His sacrifice is not a burden to him. It is a gift. I knew that my illness did not make me a piece of trash. I took a deep sigh of relief. I felt his heart was finally at peace. Our quiet house is now full of unconditional love. I sit by the window today, and I take a deep, slow sigh of relief. My hands are still, no longer shaking with fear. I knew that the truth would eventually come to light. A manipulator uses tears to blind you, but a mother uses her life to guide you. I felt a quiet strength in my soul when Thomas chose me. Never let a person's soft words make you hard-hearted toward the one who raised you. Beauty is skin deep, but a mother's love goes to the bone. I whispered to myself, true love is not a trap. It is a shield. We live in a modern world full of beautiful masks. It is a time where people are very good at playing the victim to control others. You must learn to see the reality behind the velvet traps. First, you need to identify gaslighting. If someone makes you feel guilty or ashamed for loving your elderly parents, this is a clear sign of manipulation. Do not let them isolate you from your roots. Second, you must trust but verify. Romantic love can be powerful, but do not let it make you blind. Always check the financial facts and the emotional health of your parents yourself. Do not rely on a middleman. Finally, remember that dignity is a choice. Caring for a sick or elderly parent is a heavy burden, and it is very difficult. However, it is the most sacred debt you can ever repay. A person's character is not defined by their wealth, but by how they treat those who can do nothing for them. If you choose your mother over a lie, please press the like button right now. It helps us share these lessons with the world. Subscribe to Peak English Stories for more. Tell us your story in the comments. What is the biggest sacrifice your mother made for you? Thank you for listening.